What's up, guys? Welcome back to News Wave. So, well, we're back. Actually, Lucas was born Sunday night, and we were pretty much ready to go Monday night, but we stayed through the night there as well, and we were back yesterday, Tuesday. And if you watched the video last night, you'll have probably heard about all of this. I got a nice picture of him up on Twitter and everything. So we are back and resting up and everything. But yeah, everything went well and no complications or anything, so good news all around there. Today, though, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, including Resident Evil 4, of course, releasing on the Switch. And, well, it's not a great look for Capcom right now. We're going to talk a bit about why that is, and then we also saw a nice demonstration of what we heard from Mark Cerny in that interview about the load times for the PlayStation 5, and we saw the MPDs that shows the Switch again taking control this past month. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure you hit the like button, it does help out, and get subscribed. We're heading into E3, and there's gonna be stuff all over the place, gaming news, rumors, and everything, and we'll be keeping you up to date right here as we go through. Today, actually, we're going to start with YuGiOh. So if you're a fan of YuGiOh, you realize that we had one release for the Switch in April. I believe it was April 26th we had one released, but it was only in Japan, and that was a bit concerning for a lot of people as we were a bit worried that it would just stay there in Japan. It wouldn't leave, and that, of course, is up to Konami at this point. Well, they've been touch and go with some of this stuff, but it does look like it is coming west. It's leaving Japan, it's going to go everywhere as well, and this is actually happening August 20th. They put out a full trailer, and there's going to be a physical edition that's going to come with 3 exclusive trading cards that you can pick up there when you get the game. I assume it's going to come where the booklet would be. You'll probably just have that. But good news for YuGiOh fans, you'll be able to pick that one up for the Switch later on this summer, right at the end, actually, August 20th. Good news there, though, as I'm sure a lot of people enjoy those digital card game type things, obviously. As we saw, Dragon Ball, I believe, Heroes actually did a bit better than maybe even Bandai Namco was thinking in that case, so good to see. Next up, let's talk about a rumor that seems to be almost confirmed at this point, very close to it. If you remember, we actually broke the story here that George R.R. Martin was actually working with From Software for a game that would possibly be revealed at E3, and we talked a bit about what it would be, open world style game from Software. It seemed crazy at the time to think that George R.R. Martin would be doing that, right, with Game of Thrones and everything going on, but hey, that's what we heard, and it turns out, well, that actually seems to be what's happening, at least somewhat. I know they haven't been completely confirmed with what studio or anything, but as you can see in his own website, blog post that he put out, he says that he has actually consulted on a video game out of Japan. That's pretty much it. There's one line there, but it does tell us that a company out of Japan, I don't know, maybe From Software, that he consulted on. So interestingly enough, more rumors have been popping up from Gamatsu and others that seem to point to an E3 reveal. Either way, it's exciting to think about this because we could get something crazy, with From Software showing up there, possibly with George R.R. Martin coming to the table with this big, probably massive game. Probably the biggest one From Software has ever done, if it is indeed them, as, again, we heard about here. Either way, exciting stuff. E3 is coming, and I think we're going to have some fun surprises there. And while we're on the topic of E3, while a lot of us don't look forward necessarily to EA and their really weird live presentation, there is some stuff to look forward to this year, specifically Jedi Fallen Order, which appears to just be a straight-up single-player Star Wars game from Respawn that EA isn't really messing too much with. So that at least is interesting, right? Well, we at least now know when we can tune in to see the live gameplay reveal. Wario64 actually found this on YouTube, and you can see June 9th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. That would be 12:30. That'd be 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I guess they're just going to run us through. This is, again, what EA is doing this year. They're doing a bunch of live streams that they've set up, and you can pretty much pick and choose when you want to show up and what you want to watch. Much prefer that. That is way better, because that means that I don't really have to sit around and watch them talk about FIFA and stuff, things I don't really care about. I can pick when I want to show up and watch Jedi, hopefully get to watch Skate 4, we'll see, and then anything else really cool. That also makes me wonder if they have to reveal some stuff ahead of time, or if they'll say, hey, tune in, we're gonna talk about this. It's gonna be this really cool new game that you don't want to miss out on, and then it's something no one wanted to see. But hey, maybe they'll just reveal stuff ahead of time and say, hey, tune in to see the gameplay for Skate 4 or some other stuff. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. And wouldn't you know it, while I'm gone for a few days, Capcom decides to release Resident Evil 4 in a state they probably shouldn't have. Now, what am I talking about? Well, they release it and it's definitely overpriced. I think most of us figured that at first anyway, right? It was $30. We already knew about this. All the Resident Evils were all $30, right? Resident Evil 0, and then Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil and Resident Evil 0 were a double pack at retail for $60. And we kind of looked at that and said, oh, maybe because there's two of them, they got to keep it like straight up for retail. But Resident Evil 4 does not have a physical copy. I will say, if it was physical and you go pick it up in a store and it was $30, I think some people would understand. They would say, okay, well, it's physical, it's on a cart. I kind of understand, but it's all digital at $30, which is $10 more than what we've seen on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, which is kind of an issue there, obviously. In fact, Resident Evil 2 has actually been discounted down to $30 at this point, so you can get like the newest Resident Evil, or you can get the one that's been released like 8 ways to Sunday at this point, like constantly. But either way, they released it, and we said, okay, maybe if it's $30, there will be some extra work put in. The reason we thought this is because Resident Evil Revelations, right, 2, for example, had a ton of work done to it. You could do some of the weirdest stuff in that game, but it was cool. Like, for example, while it did have motion controls, it also had the ability to do things like reload by basically covering the IR sensor on the bottom. I didn't like using it at all, but it was there and it was interesting. And sure, Capcom was at least putting some effort into the ports they were doing, and the game itself wasn't like overpriced, right? So that was actually a cool thing to see, and it gave us hope for something like Resident Evil 4, although it comes out and it's $30 and has had pretty much no work put into it. Like, there's no gyro controls at all, which is very weird to me, because Resident Evil 4, while it is an outstanding game, and I will say it's probably worth $30, but when you look at it next to the pricing of that same game on other platforms with basically the same feature, same bugs, by the way, like the acceleration aiming glitch is still there, where Leon will pretty much convulse while you're trying to aim at certain points in the game for whatever reason, which of course will mess you up. Not a good look, not good at all. So it's $10 more. It's the same game moved over to a platform that Capcom is probably still viewing as a place that they can just mark things up and get money for. Basically taking advantage, price gouging, whatever you want to call it. Again, Resident Evil 4 is an outstanding game, but I've bought the thing like 4 times, and I think some of you have as well. Now, if this is your first time and you like the idea of it being portable, well, you're probably going to get your money's worth out of it. I think it is an outstanding game. I just look at this and say Capcom could have done so much more. Now, it's not going to have, I guess at that point, the same pointer controls that the Wii had. The Wii is still the best version, I think, of the game. I think the controls were better. Some people say it was too easy, but I think it just controlled better, and not necessarily just because that made it easier. I think they could have done so much more. The gyro controls would have been a step up from the analog controls. I think for a lot of people, they've gotten used to it with things like Splatoon 2. And I think I would just like to have seen the effort from Capcom, right? Even if it's optional. You can turn it off, you can still play the same. But I feel like I would have liked to have seen a bit more from Capcom when it comes to Resident Evil 4, rather than a bit more on the pricing. So it's a shame. I hope Capcom kind of at least realizes what they're doing here, and unless, I just can't imagine it costs that much to port over a game like that. I mean, this thing was on cell phones at one point. There you go, if you want to port it, you can get it on the cell phone. It's not a great version of the game, but it's still there, I guess. So that's where we are with Resident Evil 4. Capcom overcharges for this thing, and now I think we're all concerned about Devil May Cry. How much is that thing going to be? Because they just released Resident Evil 4 for $30. Yes, it's an outstanding game, but Capcom might think they can get away with this a couple times now. Is Devil May Cry 1 going to come out? Is that thing going to be $25? Because if it's any more than $15 to me, that's too much, right? But we'll see. Next up, let's talk about Sony and their PlayStation 5. They, of course, have been talking about it here and there, had a full interview that Mark Cerny had, and it was very interesting to hear about this system and kind of what they were working towards. It wasn't necessarily just it being a graphical beast, although I'm sure it's going to look great. I'm sure visuals and everything are going to look awesome on it, but they seem to keep touching on a solid-state drive over everything else. Like, you kept talking about it. Talked about, like spatial audio and all this other stuff, not necessarily just graphics, which I assume they want to touch on that because when they show it off, everyone's gonna be like, wow, this looks amazing. They might not necessarily say, wow, it loads that much faster, although they did show it off and it was noticeable side by side. Even if it wasn't, I think people would still notice it. This was actually shown to their investors at their full briefing that they did, and it basically shows what Mark Cerny had described before, which was Spider-Man loading in less than a second. It's like 0.8 seconds. Next to the PlayStation 4 Pro, which takes over 8 seconds, it is a pretty big jump. That is a large difference. Now, this is, of course, a PlayStation 4 game loading up very quickly on a PlayStation 5. How fast will the PS5 games load up? That's a great question that we don't have answers for yet. But then they do the fly-through of the entire world, of course, New York City that you're going through, and it will load very fast on the PlayStation 5, but it will stutter and have a hard time drawing distance and everything as you're going through on the PlayStation 4 Pro. And again, just shows kind of the direction they're going in. We can eliminate load times. We can make open world pretty much load seamlessly very, very fast. And that overall should make a better, more seamless experience. I am all for load times just going away as much as possible. That is actually really exciting. We already know the PS5 is going to look better, but let's get some more of these, I guess just these issues we have now with current gen games. Like, can we get to the point where we don't have to install games and have them take forever? Because if that's something the PS5 offers, again, just more things to cut down on us sitting there and staring at a screen. I'm all for that. Next up, let's talk about the NPD that happened in April. So this is, of course, sales tracking in the United States, and it's a kind of mixture of physical and digital and just physical. Depends on where the data is pulled from. Like, Nintendo doesn't give them any of their eShop sales. I believe Activision, Blizzard doesn't give any of the Battle.net stuff over. It's kind of a mess, but they do at least market. And this is an interesting situation with this past month, and I'm going to show you why. First, though, let's take a look at the top 10. As you're seeing here, Mortal Kombat 11 at the top, number 1. That did beat out Days Gone, but of course, Mortal Kombat 11 is out on way more platforms than Days Gone, which Days Gone is stuck to the PS4, obviously. MLB 19 The Show at number 3, Tom Clancy's Division 2 at number 4, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 5, Grand Theft Auto 5 at 6, which never goes away. Grand Theft Auto 5 is like always in the top 20 at least. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, actually still up there at number 7, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 at 8, NBA 2K19 at 9, and then Yoshi's Crafted World rounding out the top 10. And if we move over to the Switch's best-selling games, they had a top 10 for April. What's interesting is Mortal Kombat 11 is number 1. Now, Mortal Kombat 11 was also number 1 on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, but what's interesting about this situation is the last time we had a third-party game that was number 1 for the Switch on these charts, it was Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and that was kind of expected. It had the Mario IP and everything, so it had a Nintendo character, obviously, on the front, but Ubisoft was working with it. This is just straight up third party, right? This has nothing to do with Nintendo technically, outside of maybe talking to WB and NetherRealm to get it all done, to make it work out and everything. But this isn't using or leveraging any of Nintendo's characters or IPs. This is just straight up Mortal Kombat 11, a third party game selling best in April on this, like on the Switch overall for the selection of games. That's pretty impressive. That's something that WB is going to, I think, remember and look at. There's a chance they might actually continue to take the Switch seriously with some of these day and date releases. Will the other Western third parties get on board? It's hard to say. Bethesda, at least, seems on board with the Switch. EA and Activision are still some pretty big question marks, I would say, at this point. Now, as for the MPD for the hardware, the Switch was number 1 with the Neon Joy-Con controller bundle being the best-selling system, and it is the best-selling system year-to-date, both unit sales and dollar sales. So the Switch most likely is going to sell, I would say, be the best-selling hardware every month this year. It's going to have a long string of months in a row, and that has a lot to do with Nintendo's much stronger second half than obviously the first half. I mean, we're going to kick off with Mario Maker 2, and it's going to be non-stop Nintendo first-party releases, possibly up to 2 releases every single month all the way through the holidays, most likely. So yeah, it's going to get out of control, and the Switch should continue to kind of run the table essentially in 2019 on the NPD sales charts. It's going to be interesting to see if the Western third parties start to get on board, kind of like WB seems to be doing. And our last bit of news, let's talk about Psychonauts 2. I'm not kidding. I thought this game was in trouble, right? It's had like, what, crowdsourcing and everything take place. Starbreeze is the publisher, and Starbreeze is having some serious issues, which kind of put me in a doubt a bit about Psychonauts 2. But here's the good news. We're going to see it. E3 is going to be a place where we're going to apparently see a demo of Psychonauts 2, which I believe is still scheduled to release later this year. But this is actually a tweet that was put out, just announced, joined Tim of Legend and Jack Black. So Jack Black is going to be doing the panel. That's cool. For a special panel and a demo of Psychonauts 2 only during E3 Coliseum. So this is really exciting to see this, because I thought the only news we're going to hear about Psychonauts 2 is that it's been delayed or even outright canceled or just shelved. Who knows? Look up Starbreeze. They're having some issues. It gets into some pretty serious stuff, all right? But I'm very happy to hear about this. Psychonauts 1 is awesome, still really good. I believe it's on Steam. I think it's on GOG. You can pick it up and try it out. I think it still holds up. And to see the second one seemingly still on track, a bit surprising, I'll be honest. But exciting. E3, I'm telling you, E3 I think is gonna be really fun, guys. We're gonna have some fun stuff this year, even though Sony's not necessarily there. Third parties like Square will still show off things like Final Fantasy VII Remake that we're seeing that's only on PlayStation. I'm sure Psychonauts 2 is going there and everything. So just because one of the big three isn't there, I think E3 is still going to be really big with representation for all three companies. And we're going to see some cool things like Psychonauts 2. And we'll finish up with our comment of the day. This one comes to us from Twilight saying, Dragon's Dogma 2 in the RE engine would be amazing. And that was talking about how Capcom has several games planned currently to use the RE engine. And what's great about this is Mr. Itsuno himself, I believe he was talking to Eurogamer at one point, said that he would love to make Dragon's Dogma 2. That would be something he would just absolutely love to do. So if you're a Dragon's Dogma fan, maybe look at that and say, oh wow, wouldn't that be neat if they did drop it into the RE engine? Now, I'd be curious if that would kind of mix well and everything. I assume it would. But to think about that possibly on a PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox and a fully maxed out PC in the RE engine with Dragon's Dogma 2, that's pretty exciting. And the fact that Mr. Itsuno wants to do it, yeah, I hope Capcom looks at this and gives them the green light. I mean, it dropped on the Switch, seemed to sell okay, but of course they're gonna have to judge if it is worth getting back into and doing it. I hope they do, and it's cool to see that at least Itsuno is interested. Ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to hit the like button. It does help out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Capcom and their pricing on Resident Evil 4. Are you okay with the pricing on it, or do you kind of look at this and say, well, Capcom decided to port this thing over with minimal effort and then slap another 10 on top? Let me know what you think, because maybe you've never played it before and you're happy that it's portable and you're okay with the $30 price tag, or maybe you're on the other side. I'm really curious where everyone kind of falls on Resident Evil 4 and its pricing from Capcom. What about the PS5 load times? We get rid of load times and install times. Is that a big enough jump next to some minimal visual upgrades? Let me know, guys, down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.